In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far beyond Earth's reach, there was a planet called Viridia. The skies were blue, the buildings were perfect, and the people were proud of their logic, order, and perfection. Everything had a place. Everything followed a rule. Then Cries was born. She was different from the others. She was taller, much taller. Her skin was deep blue, her bones heavier, her eyes glowing softly, even in the dark. As a child, she didn't fit the standard chairs. She bent doorways just by walking through them. While others learned to fight or fly small ships, Cries was left behind. "She's too big," the elders whispered. "She won't blend in. She won't be fast. She'll never be one of us." As she grew, the whispers turned into silence. No one invited her to join the learning circles. No one spoke her name. Even the younger children were told not to play near her. Cries became a shadow present, but ignored. She lived on the edge of the village near a still, quiet lake. She spent her days alone, watching the water, building small tools from scrap. And looking at the stars, she didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just listened. But deep inside, she wondered, was I really a mistake? Then, one day, something fell from the sky. It happened just after dawn. A metallic streak shot across the sky like fire, and a loud explosion followed. Something had crashed in the mountains near the village. People gathered to watch the smoke rise, but no one moved. "Probably another broken human ship," someone said. "Not our problem." The leaders agreed. "It's Earth technology. Leave it. Too dangerous." But Cries didn't listen. Something inside her told her to go. She walked toward the smoke step after a heavy step. The air grew hotter. The trees were burning. Tees saw it. A small silver ship broken in half. The metal was still glowing, and wires sparked. A human lay near the wreckage, half buried in dirt. His body was burned, and blood covered his forehead. He was unconscious. Cries hesitated. She had never touched a human before. But she bent down and lifted him gently. He was small in her arms, light and fragile. She carried him all the way back to her home by the lake. No one helped her. They watched from a distance, cold and silent. She cleaned his wounds, gave him water, and stayed up all night, keeping him warm. By morning, the man opened his eyes. His voice was weak, but clear. "Are you an angel?" Cries froze. No one had ever spoken to her that way. No one had ever looked at her with kindness. Her voice was quiet when she finally spoke. "No, I'm just ... different." The man smiled. "Different is good." His name was Daniel, a scientist from Earth. He had come on a research mission but was caught in a storm and lost control of his ship. He thanked her for saving his life. Every day, Cries brought him food, helped him walk, and listened to his stories about Earth, about rain, trees, music, and laughter. Daniel didn't care about her size. He cared about her soul. He watched the way she moved, slow but gentle, strong but careful. There was something peaceful about her, something no one else saw. The village elders, however, were not pleased. They warned her. The human will bring attention. He will bring danger. Cries didn't respond. Looked up at the stars and whispered to Daniel one night. They said I was too big to matter. Daniel shook his head. They're wrong. He didn't know it yet. But she was more than different. She was special, because inside Cries' blood lived something ancient, something powerful, something that could shake the stars themselves. Daniel spent the next few days recovering near the edge of the lake, in the small shelter Cries had built for him. She didn't speak much, but her actions said everything. She brought him food, kept the fire burning, and stayed nearby to protect him, even when the nights were cold. Her steps were heavy, but careful. Her hands were large, but gentle. Daniel had seen many alien races in his years as a scientist, but never one like Sarai. Her skin shimmered under the sun, glowing softly with tiny specks of light, like stars, trapped under her skin. Her long silver-white hair flowed over her shoulders, and her deep, violet eyes watched him with quiet curiosity. The people of the village stayed away. They whispered behind her back. They pointed and shook their heads. She's feeding the human. She should not be near him. She's embarrassing us. But Sarai didn't care, and neither did Daniel. Each day he grew stronger. And with strength came questions. Why do they hate you? He asked one morning while she helped him stand. Sarai looked away, toward the mountains. Her voice was soft. Because I don't look like them. I don't move like them. I don't think like them. Daniel frowned. That's not a reason to hate anyone. She looked down at him. Here it is. Daniel studied her. She was clearly bigger than the others, but it wasn't just size. There was something powerful inside her. Something ancient. Her energy felt different, stronger, but peaceful. Later that day, Daniel activated a small scanner from his belt. It was a standard tool used to scan DNA, injuries, and cell activity. When he scanned himself, the device gave normal results. But when he scanned Sarai, the screen blinked, then glitch, then showed something Daniel didn't expect, a symbol he didn't recognize, a warning, a marker that hadn't been used in over 500 years. Daniel's eyes widened. SERAI ... You're not just different. You're rare. Very rare. She looked confused. What does that mean? Keen. It means you're part of a bloodline that was thought to be extinct. A hybrid, a fusion of ancient species. You have abilities no one else here has. You might even have powers that haven't awakened yet. Sarai was silent. No one had ever told her she was more than others. Only less, but the scanner didn't lie. Daniel kept studying the data late into the night. The results showed her cells could absorb and redirect energy. Her skin was more resistant than metal. Her brain activity was higher than most advanced. Artificial intelligence units, in simple words, she could be stronger than any soldier, faster than any ship, smarter than any computer. But someone was watching them, behind the trees. Near the edge of the camp, a small flying drone hovered silently. Its lens zoomed in, recording Sarai and Daniel's conversation. It transmitted the footage to the central council of the village. They saw the scans, they saw the results, and they were afraid. The next morning, while Sarai collected fresh fruit near the lake, she noticed something strange. The people who used to ignore her were now staring at her. But this time, it wasn't with boredom. It was with fear. Daniel noticed it too. Guards had been placed near the edge of the village. People were whispering faster now. The leaders called. A private meeting. Sarai wasn't invited. That night, as the moonlight hit the still water of the lake, Sarai sat beside Daniel. "Do you regret crashing here?" she asked. He looked at her and smiled. "Not for 1 second. Even if they come for you?" "They might come for both of us," Daniel said. "But I'm not leaving you." It was the first time anyone had stood by her. Not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. Daniel took her hand gently. "Sarai, you're not a mistake. You were born for something bigger. I don't know what it is yet, but I believe in you." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by stars above and reflected, light below, something changed in Sarah's heart. For the first time, she believed in herself, but neither of them knew, the danger was already on its way. Daniel couldn't sleep that night. He kept staring at the results from the DNA scan on his device. The numbers didn't make sense. Her Sarai's blood wasn't just strong, It was ancient. It carried pieces of a long-lost genetic pattern. From before the galactic collapse, something only found in legends and sealed archives. Daniel zoomed in on the code. Hidden deep in her cells were markers from the Solarian lineage, a powerful hybrid race believed to have died out hundreds of years ago. The Solarians had the strength to lift starship engines, the minds to bend AI systems, and the hearts to heal or destroy entire cities. Their blood was considered too dangerous, too powerful land, so the old empires erased them. But one had survived, and she was sitting by the lake. Alone, unwanted. The next morning, Cries brought Daniel breakfast. Her hands were calm, but her eyes were tired. "I heard the guards outside my home last night," she said quietly. Daniel nodded. "They know something. They're watching us now." Cries looked at him. "What did your scan find? What am I?" T took a deep breath. "You're not a mistake, Cries. You're not even rare. You're possible." She blinked. "You have Solarian blood," he said. "That race was lost long ago. They were strong, but peaceful. Everyone feared their potential. You have that same spark inside you." Cries didn't speak. She sat beside him, staring at the lake's reflection. "You're not dangerous," Daniel continued, "but you could become the most powerful being in this system if someone pushed you. And that's what they're afraid of. Not what you are, but what you could be." Cries looked at her hands. "I don't want to hurt anyone." Daniel smiled. "That's exactly why you're the one who should have this power." Later that day, Cries returned to the village alone. She wanted to show them she wasn't hiding anything, but the elders didn't speak. They simply looked down from their tall stone chairs and said, "You are under watch. You must not leave the village. Without permission, no thank you. No kindness. No curiosity, just fear." That evening, Daniel searched the crash site one last time. He dug through the wreckage and pulled out a hidden data core from his ship. It contained years of research records of lost species, rare bloodlines, and secret government programs. Inside, he found something shocking. Cries' exact genetic profile was listed on a black flag database from a secret Earthlab. The note next to her DNA read, "Asset class, Zeta, suppress or eliminate if discovered. Do not allow activation." Daniel's heart dropped. They had known about her, even before she was born. She wasn't just rare, she was hunted. He rushed back to Cries and showed her the file. "You're not just an accident of nature," he said. "You were created. Or maybe hidden. Either way, someone powerful out there wants to stop you before you understand who you are." Cries' hands trembled. "Then why did I survive? Why now?" Daniel's voice was firm. "Because now, you're not alone." But just as he said that, they heard a sound of soft buzzing in the trees. A surveillance drone. It flew away before they could stop it. They heard everything, Cries whispered, by nightfall. The village leaders held an emergency meeting. They claimed Cries was hiding secrets, that she had broken the law by helping the human. They said she was a danger to their safety. They ordered her to be taken. The guards came at midnight. Daniel tried to stop them, but he was pushed back. "She is not one of us," they said, "and she never will be." They placed metal cuffs on her wrists, devices that glowed and locked her strength. Cries didn't fight. She didn't scream. She looked at Daniel one last time as they led her away. "Don't come after me," she said softly. "They'll hurt you too." But Daniel didn't listen. He watched the stars above and made a silent promise. If she's a threat to them, and maybe it's time someone stood beside her instead of against her. Because Cries wasn't a weapon, she was a key. And someone had just tried to lock her away. The sky over Viridia was silent, but something had changed. The stars looked colder. The lake no longer reflected peace. Cries was gone, taken, locked away in a containment chamber beneath the council's fortress. No one spoke about it in the village. People acted like she had never existed. The guards said she was being protected. But Daniel knew the truth. They were afraid of her, and they were preparing to erase her. Inside her cell, Cries sat on the cold metal floor. Her arms were bound in glowing cuffs that suppressed her strength. She felt weak, but not because of the cuffs. She felt weak because of betrayal. She had lived in this village her whole life. She had followed their rules. She had stayed silent when they rejected her, even when they ignored her pain. But now, the moment someone saw her worth, they turned against her. And all for what? Because of what lived in her blood, because she might one day be strong. She looked at her reflection in the steel wall. For the first time, she hated what she saw. Not because of her size, but because she let herself believe she mattered. But deep inside, something had started to wake up. Meanwhile, Daniel was not. Staying silent, he went to the council hall, pushing past guards, shouting Sarai's name. "She saved my life," he yelled. "She helped me when all of you did nothing." The elders sat on their tall chairs, emotionless. "She is a risk," the leader said. "She's a person." Daniel replied, "She carries power that cannot be controlled." "You mean power you can't control." The room went quiet. Daniel looked around. "You're not protecting this village. You're protecting your fear." The council ordered him removed. They took his equipment. They blocked his access to Sarai, and they told him to leave the planet. He DN'd single quotes. Instead, he began to plan. Daniel had once worked with frontier engineers. He knew how to break into secure systems. He remembered the layout of the council fortress. Late at night, he made a map in the dirt near the lake. He marked the ventilation shafts, the power cores, the security shifts. He was going to get her out. Not because she was a weapon, but because she was his friend. And no one locks up someone just for being different. Back in her cell, Sarai was hearing voices, not from outside, but inside her mind. They weren't words. More like feelings. Pressure, a quiet pulse growing stronger every hour. She felt her skin getting warmer. Her heart beating louder. The cuffs on her wrists began to flicker. Was her power. Waking up, one guard noticed it too. He reported to the council, "Her energy levels are rising." "Then move her," the elder said, "before she becomes something worse." The next day, they came to relocate her to an off-world prison. But Daniel was already waiting, just before sunrise. He activated a small blackout pulse near the fortress, just enough to kill the lights for 30 seconds. In that moment of darkness, he slipped through the side tunnels, wearing stolen guard armor. He reached her chamber just as they unlocked her cuffs. The door opened. The guards stepped inside, but they weren't ready. Cries stood tall, now taller than ever. Her skin shimmered like stars. Her cuffs, broken and smoking, lay at her feet. She didn't run, she didn't scream. She just looked at them, calm and steady. "Why? Are you afraid of me?" she asked. None of them had an answer. Just then, Daniel threw a flash emitter into the room. A bright light blinded the guards. He grabbed Sarai's hand and pulled her out. They ran through the tunnels together, side by side. This time, it wasn't Sarai saving Daniel. They were saving each other. Behind them, alarms echoed through the walls. Guards chased them through the corridors, but Sarai's strength had returned. She knocked down walls. She tore through locked doors. She didn't need permission anymore. When they reached the surface, she stopped and turned back. "You go," she told Daniel. "I'm not leaving you." She smiled for the first time. "Good." they escaped into the forest, where the stars above watched silently. The village behind them was already rewriting the story, already pretending it was under control, but something had changed. They weren't just running anymore. Sarai had finally decided who she was. Not a danger, not a tool, not a mistake. She was free, and freedom was only the beginning. The sun rose over the forests of Viridia. But Cries and Daniel were already gone. They moved quickly, far from the village that had turned its back on her. Cries' body still carried the bruises of her prison, but her mind had changed. She no longer walked with quiet fear. Now, every step she took felt stronger, faster, more alive than ever before. Daniel kept checking his handheld scanner. "We need to find a ship," he said. "They'll come for you again, not just this village. The whole system will." "No soon." Sarai nodded. "There's an old launch pad in the desert. No one uses it anymore. That's all we need." The journey wasn't easy. They crossed rivers, climbed steep hills, and hid from scout drones searching the skies. One night, while resting under a rocky cliff, Daniel noticed something strange. Sarai's body was glowing softly in the dark, not bright, but just enough to make her skin shimmer like starlight. "Does it hurt?" he asked quietly. She shook. Her head? No, but it feels like something's waking up. Daniel stared at her. "Your body is adapting. The energy inside you. It's not just bloodline. It's becoming active. Whatever they feared, it's starting now." "But I'm still me," Cries said. "I don't want to hurt anyone. You won't. Power doesn't make someone dangerous. Fear does." The next morning, they reached the desert. In the distance, half buried in sand and stone, stood an old metal tower, the remains of an ancient launch station. Broken ships, covered in dust, sat like skeletons in the hot wind. Daniel smiled. "That one? The scout cruiser. It's small, but it'll fly." They hurried to the ship and began repairs. Cries lifted metal panels with ease, her strength growing every hour. Daniel reprogrammed the controls, bypassing old security locks. But time was short. The village council had sent a transmission to the Interplanetary Authority. Cries was now listed as Level Red, Biothreat. Every patrol ship in the area would be searching for her. As Daniel worked, Cries looked up at the sky. For the first time, she didn't feel like she belonged to the planet beneath her. She felt connected to the stars, like something out there was calling her. "Daniel," she said, "what if this power was never meant to stay small?" "What? If I was always meant to leave?" Daniel nodded. "Then maybe they didn't fear what you'd do here. They feared what you'd become out there." Just then, the scanner beeped. 2 ships approaching fast. "They found us," Daniel said. "We're out of time." Cries helped him inside the cockpit. "Can it fly?" "Just barely." The engines roared to life, kicking sand across the launch pad. The old scout ship shook, creaked, and lifted off the ground just as the 2 enemy ships fired warning shots from above. "We don't have weapons," Daniel shouted. Cries didn't answer. She stood at the side window, her hands glowing slightly. And then, something incredible happened. The enemy ships locked on with targeting beams. But before they could fire again, a sudden wave of blue energy pulsed from Cries' body, silent, invisible to the naked eye, but powerful. The ships blinked, their lights dimmed, their engines died, and just like that, they fell, not destroyed, not exploded, just shut down. Daniel stared at her in shock. "What did you just do?" Cries looked at her hands. "I don't know. It just happened." He laughed. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." She smiled softly. They broke through the clouds, into the sky, and finally into space. Stars filled the windows. The planet below became smaller and smaller until it was just a ... Daniel leaned back. Welcome to freedom. Cries stood tall, her eyes glowing gently, but in the darkness beyond. Other lights were blinking, satellites, ships, transmissions being sent. Her escape had been noticed. Across the stars, people were talking. Some feared her, some wanted her, but a few began to hope. Hope that someone like her, someone once told she was too big to matter, might be the one to change everything. The scout ship floated through space like a silent bird, gliding between stars. Inside, Cries stood near. The window, her silver-white hair glowing in the soft lights of the control deck. Her deep blue skin shimmered, and her eyes reflected the stars, the same stars she had only seen from the ground. Now, she was among them. Daniel worked at the ship's console, scanning nearby systems. We've got enough fuel to reach the next sector, he said. There's a neutral station there. We can hide, rest, maybe get supplies. Sarai nodded, but said nothing. She hadn't spoken much since they left. Verida, not because she was afraid, but because her thoughts were full. She remembered the faces of the villagers, the way they looked at her, like she was nothing. A burden, a mistake. All her life, she had stayed small, silent, careful. But the moment she stood up, they tried to lock her down. She looked at her hands. The power was still there, quiet, but alive. I'm not angry, she said suddenly. Daniel turned to her. No, I'm sad, she continued. Not for me. For them. They had the chance to stand with me, and they chose fear. Daniel walked over and stood beside her. You didn't run because you were scared. You ran to survive. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Cries looked at him. Then why does it still feel heavy? Daniel paused. Because you still care, and that's what makes you strong. They reached the edge of Sector 9. A neutral zone filled with small planets, mining colonies, and hidden trade posts. It wasn't part of any major empire. It was free, and full of secrets. Daniel landed the ship on Station Orin, a floating hub where hundreds of travelers, traders, and refugees moved through its metal halls. No one asked questions here. That's why it was safe as they walked through the station. Many people stared at Sarai, some in awe, some in fear. But Cries walked tall now. She didn't hide her size, her skin, or her light. She had spent her whole life shrinking herself. Not anymore. They sat in a quiet cafe in the lower ring of the station. Daniel opened a holomap on the table. We have choices, he said. We can disappear, live quiet, stay off the grid. Cries looked up and let them do it to someone else. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? They'll do it again, she said. To someone else, someone different. Someone who doesn't fit. If I stay silent, I become just like them. Daniel leaned forward. So what will you do? Cries looked around at the people, aliens with scars, children with cybernetic limbs, workers in ragged uniforms. I want to help people like me, she said. The ones they ignore, the ones they fear. I don't want to fight for power. I want to fight for voices no one hears. Daniel smiled slowly. Then we don't hide. We find those who've been silenced and stand with them. They made a plan. Together, they began visiting small colonies, listening to the stories of the broken, the forgotten, the rejected. Cries never gave speeches. She didn't wear armor or carry weapons. She simply stood beside the weak, and that was enough to make the strong take notice. One day, a mining colony was attacked by pirates. The guards fled. The civilians were trapped. When Cries arrived, she didn't wait for help. She walked straight into the fire. The pirates laughed at her size. Then she stopped their ship with her bare hands. people began to whisper her name across stations. She's the one from Viridia. She lifted a cargo hauler like it was a toy. She doesn't kill, she protects. They started calling her the quiet flame, not loud, not angry, but burning with something no one could stop. And slowly, a message spread across the stars. She was too big to matter. No, she was just big enough to change everything. But the galaxy was listening now. Watching, some wanted her on their side. Others wanted her gone. And somewhere in the dark, a shadow from her past was rising. Someone who knew exactly what Cries was, and what she might become. Across the galaxy, her name was no longer a secret. Serai, the one who stopped pirates with her bare hands. The one who stood beside the weak and made the powerful tremble. The one who had been called too big to matter. And proved them all wrong. But now, new eyes were watching. From dark space, a powerful fleet approached. Not pirates, not local patrols. This was a private strike force hired by people who feared what Cries had become. They didn't want to talk. They wanted to end her. Quietly on Station Orin, Cries sat with Daniel, reviewing reports from nearby colonies. There's been a signal from the Alaris moon, Daniel said. A camp of refugees, mostly children. Someone's threatening to take it. Cries nodded. Then we go. But before they could leave, the station lights flickered. Alarms sounded. Doors sealed shut. Outside the window, massive black ships hovered in silence. Daniel stood up quickly. That's not local militia, a voice echoed. Through the station speakers, turn over the subject named Cries. No one else will be harmed. Everyone froze. Merchants, pilots, children. Everyone stared at Cries, and Cries. She didn't move. After a long pause, she turned to Daniel. I'll go out alone. No, he said firmly. They came for me, not them. Exactly why you won't go alone. He reached into his bag and handed her a simple metal badge, the symbol of a protector. You earned this, Cries, not because you're strong, but because you never stopped caring. Cries smiled gently, then walked to the station doors. The guards tried to block her path, but the people stepped forward instead. We stand with her, said a shopkeeper. She saved my son, said a miner. She gave us hope, whispered a child, for the first time. Cries didn't feel like an outsider. She felt like a leader. She stepped outside the station, her long white hair flowing in the wind of the landing ships. The sky above was filled with silent destroyers. A commander approached, armored and cold. You are classified as a galactic lethal threat, he said. Surrender or be removed. Cries looked at him with calm eyes. I'm not your enemy, she said. You could destroy cities. I save them. You could bend systems. Lift them. The commander raised his weapon, and that's when Cries raised her hand not to attack, but to release. A pulse of energy, soft but wide, spread out from her body. The soldiers' weapons sparked and powered down. The ships above flickered and went still. Not one person was hurt, but the message was clear. She couldn't be controlled. She couldn't be silenced, but she could choose peace. The commander stared in disbelief. You could have killed us all. Cries stepped forward. That's not who I am. He lowered his head. Then maybe. You're what we need. News of the event spread like light through the dark. From colony to colony, people shared her story, not just her strength, but her choice. She had power, yes, but she used it to protect, to lift others, to stand beside those left behind, and as her legend grew, people began to rise. Villagers, workers, children. They stood taller, spoke louder, and believed that maybe, just maybe, they mattered too. Back on the ship, Daniel was recording her. Story when he finished. He looked at the title and smiled. They said her body was too big to matter till one human changed everything. But Cries stood behind him and gently corrected him. No, she said. One human didn't change. Everything. He looked up. No. She smiled. We changed each other. And in that moment, in the quiet between stars, Cries knew. She wasn't just a girl from a forgotten village. She was a symbol, a protector, a giant not in size, but in heart. And her journey was only just beginning. Asterisk.